This project is supported by my friends at Geica Music. Visit their website www.geica.com or click the affiliate link in the description. Hello everyone, welcome back to Fanblade. This week we're carrying on with the Headless Bass build. Last week, where we left off, was that I had just dumped a frankly irresponsible amount of superglue onto this body to try and fill in all the woodworm that's eaten away at the top. So we're gonna have to do a lot more work to this. We'll start by sanding all of this off, and then we'll see exactly how much of this damage I've still got left to fill. Then I'm going to talk about strategies for blending all of that in. So that was just some 80 grit sandpaper, and then I come in with a razor blade and just scraped down so that we could get this smooth enough to see what we're actually dealing with. I like razor blades for that. You can sort of use them as a cheat code for getting a nice level finish very, very quickly. I don't tend to use them when I'm doing final finishes because they can be a little bit brutal, and I have gone through the finish in several places on this, but it's fine. We are a long way from being done at this point. So we've got some holes that are completely filled in and others that are very much not. So there's still a bit of filling left to do. Voya Guitars left a comment on the last video to say that a company named Starbond makes brown CA glue, which would probably pretty much do the trick. And I even found a local supplier for it. But what we have here is a situation where half of them are already filled in, and they've gone a kind of a dark colour. The rest of them really have to match, so I probably should have used the brown CA glue first. Now that I know that it exists and they will actually ship it to New Zealand, I'll probably use that for the next time I need to do this. Now, like I say, I've just got to drop fill all of these with the regular CA glue that I have. It's going to be tedious. It's going to be time consuming. It's going to smell bad, but I think it's going to be worth it in the end because it doesn't look too bad. I like the way the wood has darkened with the CA glue going in there. Like, it's not showing up bright. In fact, I'm thinking I could probably put a dark stain on this wood and then sand it back until these are just about the same shade, and they'll basically just become invisible. It will also make the grain less visible, that is true. It won't be invisible. Like, I'm not painting it black, don't worry. It's not going to pop like I would normally prefer to do, but, I would prefer that it didn't have woodworm as well, so, what are you going to do? Now, just while I'm adding subsequent layers of glue to fill the holes around the edge of the body, I need to start working on the neck. Now, this is, of course, Purple Heart. I need to get this radiused because that's going to expose fresh timber, and it takes a few days for the colour to come back. So I need to get onto this sooner rather than later. And I've already run into a very slight problem. Now, I didn't properly account for the geometry of the string retainer. I figured I'd have plenty of room to play with, and I do, except this little lip here goes onto the fingerboard, and I will have to chisel a little channel out of the end of this fingerboard, but I also need to stick in a 0 fret, which takes up an extra couple of millimetres, which means that if the 0 fret is there, then the 24th fret winds up about there, which is far too close to where I've cut the board. The excess that you would normally leave at the end of the board, it's all been taken up down the other end there. So what I'm going to have to do is essentially cheat it. When you have a 34-inch scale length expressed in metric terms, that comes to 864 millimetres. I'm going to make it 860. That's just going to pull everything back a little bit, and the 24th fret winds up about there, which is still a little bit closer to the end than I would like, but it's still going to go in, and it's still going to stay in, which is kind of the point. Also, 4 millimetres reduced scale length. I don't think anybody's going to get their knickers in a twist about that, I would hope. You'll barely be able to notice it. Newer viewers to the channel, welcome by the way, may not have actually heard me explain my process for fretting. Like the old-timers, the long-term viewers, you know all this stuff. You can probably fast-forward the next few minutes. What I do, first of all, is I make sure that I've got one edge of the fingerboard planed down perfectly flat, perfectly straight, perfectly parallel to the centre line. And that's important because I want to take a square and I want to go through and mark my fret positions and have them all come out perfectly parallel. If you don't do that, then you sort of run the risk of a few of them being a little bit wonky if that surface isn't perfectly flat. So with that done, I can then tape the ruler in place, just with some masking tape, just to make sure that this doesn't shift a little bit, because that's going to throw everything right off. So you make sure your ruler's in place, you take your measurements, and I use a little app on my phone just to get all the calculations in place. The app that I'm using is no longer available. I have carried this over across 3 phones now, so I can't recommend the app to you. I'm sure there are other ones that'll do it. It's called Fret Scale Calculator, and it's great, but I don't know where to tell you to get it from because I don't know if it exists anymore. Just go through, mark out the positions, then come in with the square, and then, this is where it gets interesting, I simply take my knife and I will score a line using the square, and that will serve as a guide for the razor saw to go in and cut the depth of slot. Now, this is the initial cut. This is not nearly wide enough. This is a very, very thin blade, not nearly wide enough to get a fret in there. So these are the pilot slots that are going to guide the actual fretting saw in later on. Because there's an enormous amount of stuff to do to this board in the meantime, and if I were to come in with the fretting saw first off, then, well, A, without a pilot slot, it can slip sideways, and B, as I'm radiusing and finishing and doing a bunch of things to this, those slots can fill up with crud, and I don't want that. I want to cut that slot as the last thing before actually banging the fret in, because you want to make sure that they're clean and that they're even. So just as you would drill a very, very small pilot hole as a guide for a much bigger drill bit to come in and accurately put a hole where you want it, I am using a pilot slot to put a much, well, not that much bigger, but still critically accurate slot exactly where I want it later on in the process. You'll see what I mean. Let's get on with it. I don't think I've ever had this happen before. Tip of the knife broke off in the slot. That's a little bit dangerous because, of course, when I come in to measure the rest of these fret slots, I want to stick my hand right on that. Gonna have to watch that. So here's where we're at, and yeah, I don't think I've got enough room there to have a 24th fret. Also, you will note, of course, I never squared off the end of the fingerboard before sticking it onto the wood. This is because I thought I was going to have room to cut that square when I actually cut the neck, and I don't. I don't have enough room to do that. So, tried cheating it, that didn't work. Now I'm going to have to do things the hard way, which of course is when I cut all these slots, I'm going to slice this one all the way off and glue another piece of fingerboard in place. Then I may have to recut that last slot, but that will give me length enough that I can have my 24th fret, because I like my 24th fret. Now then, with the neck hanging up in the sunlight, we can turn our attention back to the body. And over the last couple of days, I've got most of these holes sort of fairly well filled. There might be a little bit left to go, but I think the final finish might take care of the last of it. It's the worst just around there and just around on that edge as well. And there's a few other little bits here and there. But I think we are ready to give this its proper sand. We're going to take all of this off. We're going to take all of this down to bare wood, and we're going to sand it out properly. Probably going to do the same to the back, or take that stain off, get rid of all this muck around here, and hopefully get this thing actually looking good, because at the moment it doesn't. And I know it can look so much better than this. And I realise this has been a very sanding heavy episode, but that is the deal you make when you sign up to do woodwork. finally starting to look like something. I just thought I'd lay it all out so we could get a sense of how we're going, and I think it's going okay. The neck needs a couple more days in the sun. That might be a little bit of a tough ask because it's supposed to rain all week, but I do happen to have a little plan with some UV lighting, which I might just rig up something and do a little experiment on that, but we'll see how we're going. I've also done major advances in the field of pickup technology. Now, for the last couple of years, I've been working on refining and perfecting my single coil per string design. Now, this is nearing its completion. In fact, just this afternoon I found out some very interesting things which I probably should have known about 2 years ago, but you live, you learn. I have actually already made a pickup for this bass. I've built this really just as a prototype to test out some coil dimensions, and I'm happy to say this all works rather nicely. They are also offset slightly so that as you're looking at it now, the outer two are raised up by 1mm, so when it's flipped over, it'll actually have a natural radius to it. The issue that I was having is that my original supplier of these neodymium magnets, basically they've run out. They were just a sort of a mom and pop store that had just a random selection of magnets, which just happened to be absolutely perfect for what I was doing. And I've bought them all. They don't have any more, and there's no way of knowing what grade they are. That's the thing. I've just found out that there are different grades of neodymium magnet. This may be common knowledge to people who know about magnets, but it's brand new news to me. The magnets that are in this pickup are from a supplier who just has a lot of magnets. They sell them very cheaply, and unsurprisingly, these are quite a bit weaker than the ones that I was using. This pickup is very, very underpowered. Insipid, you might say. So then I worked out two things. I found a supplier who will sell me the right magnets, some stronger ones than these. But then I also discovered that you can take a smaller magnet and you can supercharge your neodymium magnets. So this pickup, despite being a prototype and being underpowered by itself, can still be a useful thing. So I'm not wasting all the plastic or all the epoxy in this, but I am going to get some of the stronger magnets, and I will make another pickup, and then I will have two pickups in this bass. Because despite my best efforts, I don't think I'm going to be able to hide all this damage. I sort of want to pick up across that bit to cover up all of that, and then of course there'll be one covering over all this mess here. And that is all going to be fine. I will have two very nicely powered pickups in this thing, and if they work the way I think they will, and if they sound as good as I think they're going to, then I will have a design which I can easily produce. I can easily make these. I might even be able to sell them to people. And I've figured out a way to sand all of this stuff off. That can of spray lacquer that I used to finish the mini bass, turns out it looks really, really good on 3D printed parts. So that's pretty much where we're leaving it for the week. I need to get some more UV light on this neck just to really make that purple heart pop. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. In the meantime, I want to thank Geica for sending me this lovely bridge for this project. You can visit their website at www.geica.com or click the affiliate link in the description, and anything you buy using that link, I get just a little bit of money back so that I can spend it on things like magnets and sandpaper, maybe even some strings. They are helping me out quite a lot, and the more you buy, the more they can help me. And even if you just go on their website and have a look at their range, they've got some really interesting stuff, including a bunch of tools, which I'm quite keen to try out some of their fret press inserts, because I still have a fret press that I want to make, so we'll see what happens in the future regarding that. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, thank you very much for subscribing, and I will see you very soon. Cheers.